Deep in the mango orchards on the Maliabad-Mohan highway lies the ruins of one of the oldest graveyards of northern India. This Mukarba graveyard is very important to us and it's the history of Maliabadi connection with Afghans, so it must be preserved. While walking through the old graves, let me discuss with you all the history of Afghan connection with India. The first time the Pathans had their contact with this subcontinent was at the dawn of the 11th century AD, when Mahmud Ghaznavi appeared on the scene. It is related that the Turkish monarch of Ghazna, Subuktigin, had married an Afghan lady whose offspring was Mahmud. After defeating Jaipal and later his son Anandpal at the end of the 10th century AD, when Mahmud Ghaznavi started his campaigns in the subcontinent, he recruited a large number of Afghan Pathan soldiers in his army. This fact is highlighted by the Ghaznavid historian named Al-Utbi, who mentioned of Afghans as included in Mahmud's armies while writing in the 11th century AD. The invasion of the Ghurids at the end of the 12th century AD brought in large number of Afghans, Pathans to the subcontinent. The commanders of Ghuri armies were mostly Turks, but the bulk of his soldiers were Afghans. One of the Afghan commanders of Ghuri, Ikhtiaruddin Bakhtiyar Khilji, conquered eastern Bihar and northern Bengal, overpowering one of the rulers of the later region in a sensational manner with only 18 horsemen. With the establishment of the Turkish slave dynasty at Delhi under Qutbuddin Aibak in 1206, Afghan influx began on a sizable scale in the whole of northern India from Indus to the Brahmaputra. During the 600 years of Muslim rule in the subcontinent, roughly from 1200 AD to 1800 AD, one notable aspect was Turk-Afghan struggle for supremacy. Though the Afghans succeeded on several occasions, their rule was invariably short-lived because of tribal rivalries and internecine warfare. But the Afghans never gave up hope and always had an eye on the government of either the entire subcontinent or of some of its provinces. As the history of India reveals, after the death of Muhammad Ghori, slave dynasty was established at Delhi in 1206. This dynasty, which continued till 1290, was entirely dominated by Turks of the Ilbari tribe. But the moment their rule degenerated under Muizuddin Kaikubad, the Afghans, who were always looking for an opportunity to assume power, dethroned Shamsuddin Kaimurs, the last ruler of the Turkish slave dynasty, and installed their leader Jalaluddin Khilji as ruler of the Delhi Sultanate. But their rule did not last more than 30 years, when taking advantage of the weakness of Khilji ruler Qutbuddin Mubarak Shah, the Turks again asserted themselves by bringing in an extremely capable general of the time, Ghiyasuddin Tughlaq, as ruler of Delhi in 1320. An outstanding feature of this 30 years Khilji rule, however, was that it produced one of the most powerful sovereigns that ever ruled in this subcontinent, Alauddin Khilji. Probably controlled a greater area of the peninsula than any before him or after him, Hindu, Buddhist or Muslim, Maurya or Mughal until the British. He was also one of the greatest and most efficient administrators that the world has produced. He laid the foundation of an administrative and revenue system later perfected by Sher Shah and Akbar. Notwithstanding the fact that the Tughlaq Turks also produced some able and brilliant rulers, the empire that Alauddin Khilji had built up disintegrated during their period. As a result, independent Muslim kingdoms had sprung up in the east, south and southwest. Furthermore, it was the weakness of the Tughlaqs that brought Amir Taimur to India in 1398 AD, resulting in great loss of life and property. On the decline of the Sayyid dynasty, which had been set up after Taimur's invasion, the Pathans again tried to regain power and establish their rule under the leadership of Lodi. The founder of this dynasty, Bahlul Lodi, was a competent ruler. In fact, the first two kings of this dynasty, Bahlul Lodi and Sikandar Lodi, were capable rulers, and even the third and last one, Ibrahim Lodi, had quite a commendable record. It was the policy of tolerance of the Pathan rulers and their efforts to bring Hindus and Muslims closer that gave birth to important religious movements in India, which had deep and far-reaching consequences. Kabir, Nanak, Chaitanya, Vallabhacharya and Ramanuj, each of whom was the leader of a particular school of thought, were born during the Lodi period. Seldom in medieval India had a monarch devoted himself so zealously to the cultivation of the arts of peace as Sikandar Lodi. He himself was a poet and wrote under the name of Gulroh. It was during Sikandar's reign that Hindus turned their attention to the study of Persian. During the period of 2.5 centuries from 1206 AD to 1450 AD, the Turks were mostly dominant. It was a period when Muslims had remained isolated, forming a separate class by themselves, which prevented any fruitful cultural contacts with the Hindus. But the coming of the Lodis into power in 1451 AD opened a new chapter in our cultural history, bringing the two people closer in various walks of life. This trend received further impetus with the short-lived but eventful Suri dynasty. Let us briefly review the events from the fall of the Lodi Pathans to the rise of Suri Pathans. The dynasty was considerably weakened during the reign of Ibrahim Lodi on account of the internal fight between various factions of Lodis. These developments were being closely watched from Kabul by the founder of the Mughal Empire, Zahiruddin Babur, a Turk of the Barlas who, on being ousted from his home city of Samarkand by the Mongol tribe of Uzbeks, had set up his headquarters in the Afghan territory. This shrewd and able Barlas Turk for over 20 years kept himself busy with preparation for the inevitable clash with the Lodis, whose weak points he was thoroughly acquainted with. He availed himself of the first opportunity when the governor of Lahore, Daulat Khan Lodi, and Alauddin Khan, a brother of Ibrahim Lodi, invited him to liberate India from the Lodi rule. This illustrates the point that one faction of the Lodis was against another, with the result that they met their Waterloo at Panipat. Once again, Turks under the leadership of Babur overthrew the Pathans in the first battle of Panipat, fought in 1526. Babur died in 1530 and was succeeded by his son Humayun, who ruled till 1540, but the Pathans, though defeated at Panipat, never gave up the struggle for power and continued to be in virtual control of a major portion of northern India. They deployed their forces under Sher Khan, who drove out Humayun from India and established Suri dynasty. The 15 years rule of the Suris was definitely epoch-making in the history of this subcontinent. It was among the most momentous and eventful periods and left its lasting memories. Some historians are of the opinion that right from the time Bahlol Lodi established Lodi dynasty in 1451 down to the fall of the Suris in 1556, when Akbar took over after the second battle of Panipat, for a period of over 100 years, the Pathans reigned supreme in India. According to them, Babur and Humayun's periods were ineffective. It is a matter of historical significance that all the Pathans dynasties that ruled in this subcontinent, either at Delhi or in the provinces, were highly efficient, extremely liberal and invariably tolerant. But for their rivalries and mutual jealousies, none could have dislodged them, and they would have remained all-powerful. In fact, the dynamic policies of the Suri dynasty were later followed by Akbar. For example, the policy of enlisting Hindu support for the government and administration adopted by Suri and Karrani Afghans Pathans was the cornerstone of the administrative and political acumen of Akbar the Great. The ascendancy of Hemu at the court of Sultan Adil Shah and of Ari Hari in the government of Daud Karrani are instances of this policy. Akbar, following the example of Sher Shah Suri, was one of the first to include Rajputs and Brahmins as high-ranking officials in the imperial service. The inclusion of Hindus in high positions in administration was continued under Jahangir, Shah Jahan and Aurangzeb. As a matter of fact, the number of Hindus in the services increased. Above all, Aurangzeb, Alamgir's two trusted generals were Jai Singh and Jaswant Singh. All these tombs here belong to those people who settled here during the reign of Khilji, Tughlaq, Lodi and earlier Mughal periods. So that makes this place most important.